Ayaka can freeze your enemies to death, and today I'll tell you how. Let's get into it. 4-piece Blizzard Strayer is the only Ayaka set you need. 40% free crit rate in her best in slot teams, and 20% in mono cryo. 15% cryo damage bonus is no joke either. There's no better choice for our Frostflake Queen. For those curious about 4-piece Mayonnaise Hunter, don't! Mayo's great benefit to all units is how it gives you 36% crit rate total. Blizzard provides 40%. Ayaka also likes Blizzard's 2-piece more. It's accessible, but that's about it. Strong box for Blizzard Strayer instead. 2-piece cryo percent and 2-piece burst percent work fine as placeholders. Replace them with 4-piece Blizzard as soon as you can. Now for main stats. They're very simple on Ayaka. Specifically crit damage, you'll already have more than enough crit rate with her. As for substats, they look like this. Attack percent buffs have very high value in freeze teams. Use them when you can. Ayaka builds so much crit damage that she benefits very highly from attack. Crit scales off of attack after all, so to put that 200 to 240 crit damage to use, get as much sources of attack percent as possible. Her supports aren't able to provide her with a lot. This is why TDDS and Icy Quills work so well with her. What about stat breakpoints? Well, if you're on a 4-star weapon, aim for 30 crit rate with 200 crit damage. That's the bare minimum, get more if you can. And 2k attack, with 2.2k attack being achievable. For you Miss-Splitter folks out there, 30 crit rate with 240 crit damage, and aim for 2.4k attack minimum. 2.6k to 7k is achievable on insane subs. Know that attack buffs will always be the best kind of buffs for Ayaka. If you can choose between overly high damage percent or attack percent, go for attack. As for ER, check this table out. Pause if you'd like to read for longer. Now to brandish her blade. What blade must we cherish? In the way that a jeweler cherishes their gems. R1 Miss-Splitter, of course. This weapon is insane on Ayaka. She kind of needs it nowadays to stay competitive. Huge crit stick with an easy to stack passive. Huge account value as well. Don't hesitate, pick it up if you can. R1 Foliar Incision does work, but the passive is not getting used at all. Ideally your Ayaka should have 0 EM, but Ayaka loves crit damage, so for that reason, will still be better than most 4-star picks. As for free-to-plays, R5 Finale of the Deep saves the day, a new craftable Fontaine option which provides boatloads of attack percent. Now you have to play Ayaka the healer of course, but that's fine since Kokomi and Ayaka are a must pair anyway. R5 Kagiuchi is weak by modern standards, but it's still one of Ayaka's most comfortable options playstyle wise. A whole 40% ER reduction. I'd rather invest into Finale of the Deep nowadays, but if you're stuck with Mona, this still works. Ayaka's a hyper carry. Get her a 5-star weapon as soon as you can. Here's a sheet for Ayaka's weapon rankings. Pause if you'd like to read for longer. Hold it! If you're enjoying the video, why not consider liking and subscribing? Maybe even leaving a cool comment down below. If you do, you can play tic-tac-toe on Ayaka's forehead. Moving on. Our Shirasage Himegimi has many servants at her disposal. First off, Freeze, the classic. This core consists of a Hydro Applicator, an Animo to group with, and a Cryo Battery. For Hydro units, you have 3 options. Kokomi will be the best. Applies Hydro and a huge AoE and heals the team. Can hold R5 TDDS for Ayaka, no energy issues included. This is a neat buff to Ayaka's DPS. You can also run her on 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith for extra buffing. The ideal Hydro pick. Mona's also on the table. She has extremely high energy recharge requirements and you need a healer. So use R5 Prototype Amber. Her burst buffing is massive, but the Hydro application is small and within a little area, so make sure to properly group your enemies. Can help Ayaka deal massive nuke numbers, a lot less comfy to play though. Wonderful Furina is another stellar choice. Her Hydro application isn't that high, but it's enough to freeze enemies. She has mild AoE and excellent burst damage provisions. Huge off-field DPS as well. Main drawback, Charlotte is a must. Diona's a bad Furina partner. Another drawback is 4-piece Mayo Hunter won't be an increase to Ayaka, as it normally is for other Furina using DPS units. For Animos, one choice only, Kazuha. His damage bonus percent is perfect for the freeze reaction, plus his grouping is ideal with Ayaka. Best Girl Venti works too, but will make Ayaka deal less damage. Sucrose is bad here. Poor burst absorption, bad grouping, and useless A4 for freeze. As for Cryo Batteries, 4 good options depending on team. Rosaria, Shenhe, and Charlotte. And one more. Diona works, but is usually a big damage loss. Rosaria does very nice personal numbers and is a solid battery on Fav. If you don't have Shenhe, she's your next best bet. Shenhe is the cream of the crop Ayaka support. Use her if you have her, cryo res reduction, icy quills buffing, and attack percent in spades. Being able to run her on 4-piece noblesse is nice too. If you're really devoted to Ayaka, I'd go as far as saying pull her. Charlotte's good for Furina, and will be your best non-Kokomi healer option in Freeze. Not much more to it. And for the secret option, Ganyu. Ganyu has lovely off-field presence in Ayaka teams. Her burst cost is cheap, so it isn't hard to gather energy on her. Plus, everyone who stands in Ganyu's burst gets 20% cryo damage bonus, so buff her in sub DPS and 1. She can hold 4-piece noblesse in this team as well. But note, it's better to battery Ayaka over using Ganyu if you can. You can also form the high-risk, high-reward mono cryo team. A healerless comp consisting of Cryo's All-Stars, made for boss content since Freeze can't hurt bosses. Really strong team with Shenhe, and you can push Ayaka in all content. No fun without Shenhe, this team isn't worth playing. Otherwise use another single target pick. Great, we've built up our Ayaka, but what are her Kamisato arts? Let's culture ourselves in Inazuman fighting. First, her normals. She'll deal 5 physical strikes in a row, and her charged attack will unleash 3 separate sword strikes. They hit in quite a large AoE and have semi-quadratic scaling. Now, on their own, they don't seem good, do they? Well, they're saved by her talent, Ayaka's alternate dash. Her dash provides her an 18% cryo damage bonus every time it's used, so always dash before using her skill or burst. It'll apply cryo on enemies too, nice for some extra icy freeze. And it also grants her normals a cryo infusion. This then lets Ayaka deal cryo-infused attacks all the time. Her charge attacks will also now deal 3 cryo-infused strikes in a row. Also, her CA might look like it doesn't do much, but if it does 20k and more, it's doing that 3 times, so that's actually a 60k charge attack. Good to weave into Ayaka's flexible rotations. Now for her skill. It's quite simple and efficient. She deals some AoE cryo damage which regenerates some particles. It'll deal nice extra DPS and is easy to slot into rotations. She can stagger enemies with this skill and it launches light fellows into the air. Drumroll please for the best part of Ayaka's kit. Kamisato Ward, Sometsu! This is an extremely front-loaded burst which deals huge DPS of 1 blow. It'll tick 20 times if the last tick being especially strong, and can hit a wide range of grouped enemies. Super powerful burst and is the main source of damage in her kit. Since it's so quick, you can swap to your other units fast to refresh buffs. That'll keep the burst strong for its whole duration. Her burst knocks enemies back, especially tinier ones. They'll take less damage from Ayaka's burst. This is why you need to prioritize freezing with her. You don't want to miss a single tick of that nuclear burst. Her rotations are also super flexible once you fire off her nuke of a burst. You can either do more DPS with on-field Ayaka, switch to supports, or battery. You want to focus everything on buffing it as well. For a free-to-play Ayaka, 25k burst ticks is achievable. For moderate, try aim for 30 to 40k depending on weapons and team. If you're hyper-invested like myself, expect 40 to 60k per tick. This is a good way to track if you have a good Ayaka. Note that the reason Melt doesn't work with Ayaka, her burst applies way too much cryo, so the Pyro Aura doesn't even have a chance. Now for Ascension passives. Ayaka's A1. After you use her skill, her normals and charge attacks will deal 30% more damage. That lasts for 6 seconds. Very good. You can use Ayaka's skill in 2 situations, before or after her burst. If you use it before, you can funnel energy into Ayaka's burst immediately and get some damage off, but then her casting animation will eat some of the buff. But if you cast after, you can make the most of the whole buff and still catch the energy, but then your Ayaka will have longer field time. It depends on your situation. And as for her A4, it's where the dash's 18% cryo bonus comes from. She also restores 10 stamina when her dash hits an enemy. Ayaka's charge attacks are strong, so stamina is pretty nice. Grade A4, use that dash when you can. As for her talent priorities, not too difficult. Ayaka's a burst-based DPS. You should always level it first. Max it out as high as you want before moving on. She's a hyper carry, so I'd honestly crown the burst, otherwise take it up to 9. Normal attacks and charge attacks are a nice source of DPS, and her skill is a cool bonus. She's also a hyper carry, so don't neglect any ability. Aim for 8-6-9 at least, and 9-8-10 ideally. Amazing! Now we know how our beautiful Heron takes flight. Now, how does she strike her foes best? N2C is Ayaka's most tried and true combo, very efficient and gets the job done in between rotations. If you need longer rotations, N3C is the way to go, a nice extra bit of charge attack DPS. You don't have to deviate from these routes. N1C is stamina inefficient and N4C is hard to comfortably pull off, so stick to the recommended above. Great, your Ayaka's become a true Frost Princess, but what if you wish for her to ascend to Queen? Want to sacrifice all mortal possessions to your waifu? Then let's check out her constellation value. Can lower her skill cooldown. This con kinda sucks, it does nothing for her kit and barely switches up rotations. Mild quality of life, enjoy your faster skill casts. That bad C1's immediately made up for with her stellar C2. She'll create 2 smaller snowstorms next to the main large one. These deal 20% of the original storm's damage. Gives Ayaka far better boss fight presence, and helps her fight enemies spread apart easier. But if your enemies are well grouped already, they can prepare to blow away. Levels up her burst by +3, of course a very good con, solid C3 considering how important her burst is. Ayaka's best con, no questions asked. It commits a Raiden C2 and reduces enemy death by 30% for 6 seconds, her whole burst duration. Yes, the def ignore isn't as high as Raiden, but it adds up with the mini snowstorms and powerful front-loaded burst. A C6 quality con, rare for a C4 since cons at this stage are rarely ever kit defining. There's also a cool niche use case for this con. You can use it to enable huge melt-at whale investment for other units like Linny, for example. Upgrades her skill by +3, you only get this on the way to C6. Ayaka gains a huge charge attack damage bonus after 10 seconds. Unleash the nuke when the timer starts again. Places a lot more importance on Ayaka's charge attacks as well, utilizing her full kit. Yes, this is strong, but if you only care to play Ayaka as a burst unit, ignore this. In my opinion, Ayaka's C2 and 4 are amazing. Great cons, but ignore C1, it's not worth it on its own. And make sure to get Missplitter first. Well, Kamisato Ayaka is still the best cryo DPS in the game. Powerful hypercarry numbers when invested into properly. So if you want to play freeze or mono cryo, then Ayaka will be your best bet. Yet no, she's not so much of a free-to-play pick anymore. Her teams demand certain 5 stars, and she performs a lot worse without a trusty 5-star sword. But even though the Dendro meta tried to vanquish her fully, Ayaka stands strong even today, as one of Genshin's finest hypercarries. Well then, this has been Juice, signing out, and I wish you all a day. Actually, did you know? A blade is like a tea leaf. Only those who sample it many times will appreciate its